Imagine a muddy crossroads where America's destiny balanced on a knife edge. Five Forks, Virginia, April 2nd, 1865. Robert E. Lee's army desperately guarded Petersburg's last supply line. One cavalry strike would shatter everything. Today, you'll witness how history pivoted in a single afternoon. Lee understood the brutal arithmetic. Hold the Southside Railroad or watch Petersburg starve. Lose Petersburg, Richmond falls. Lose Richmond, the Confederacy dies. He entrusted George Pickett with 10,000 veterans to defend this critical junction. Everything the capital, the cause, the war itself depended on holding Five Forks. Phil Sheridan had chased Confederates through the Shenandoah Valley, burning crops and crushing resistance. Now Grant unleashed him against Lee's exposed flank. "Smash them," Grant commanded. Sheridan grinned like a wolf spotting wounded prey. He'd waited 4 brutal years for this moment. The hunter had finally cornered his quarry. Dawn broke cold on April 1st. Pickett surveyed his earthworks along White Oak Road's strong positions. Artillery well placed, veterans manning the trenches. His cavalry reported no immediate threat. Tom Rosser invited him to a shad bake nearby. Fresh fish, rare delicacy in these starving times. Surely one afternoon of rest wouldn't doom everything? I watched Pickett ride away, and dread filled my gut. Thomas Munford left in command without clear orders. Sheridan's cavalry had been probing our defenses all morning. Should I hold position? Attack? Request reinforcements? Dust clouds rose northward through the pines. Those weren't civilian wagons approaching. Something terrible was coming. Sheridan massed 40,000 men for the killing blow. Cavalry would pin Pickett's front, while Gouverneur Warren's 5th Corps crushed their flank. Simple mathematics. Warren moved cautiously, always analyzing, never attacking fast enough. Sheridan galloped along his lines, screaming encouragement. "We'll trap them like rats. No escape today." James Caldwell crouched behind our earthworks, 19 years old, from Dinwiddie County. These very roads had been his childhood playground. Now they'd become his graveyard. He watched endless blue columns emerge from the forest. Where was Pickett? Where were Lee's promised reinforcements? Caldwell's hands shook violently while loading his musket. Warren's corps stumbled through dense woods, companies losing direction in the undergrowth. Sheridan exploded with volcanic rage. Every wasted minute let Pickett escape. He found Warren studying maps, discussing optimal attack angles. "Attack now, goddammit!" Sheridan roared. "Formations don't matter anymore." Warren's officers had never witnessed such fury before. The assault struck at 4 o'clock, artillery thunder shaking the earth itself. Infantry charged, screaming through choking gunpowder smoke. We fired desperately into the blue human wave. Men collapsed in heaps. Munford tried, organizing counterattacks. But gaps appeared everywhere in our line. It bent, twisted, began breaking. Where was Pickett? Pickett heard distant thunder during his fish dinner. His stomach clenched with sudden terrible understanding. That wasn't practice. Rosser's face went pale. They abandoned the shad bake, galloped frantically toward Five Forks. 3 miles of panicked riding. Had he just deserted his command during the battle, deciding everything? You're Ranald Mackenzie, youngest general in Union Blue. Something to prove. Your cavalry smashes through Confederate defenses on their exposed left. Sabers flash, revolvers blaze. Southern horsemen scatter before your onslaught. You capture artillery, cut supply wagons loose, chase fleeing infantry. Their flank simply dissolves into chaos before your eyes. Some regiments held magnificently, others broke immediately. Our artillery fired until Union infantry overwhelmed every gun position. Cannoneers died beside their pieces, ramrods gripped in death. Sergeant Miller's head exploded beside me, bone and blood spraying everywhere. I threw down my rifle, ran blindly into the darkening woods. Survival replaced honor. Sheridan spotted Warren's division still organizing rather than attacking. Unforgivable. He galloped directly to Warren, face purple with absolute fury. "You're relieved of command." Warren stood stunned, disbelieving. "Relieved during battle? But sir, my troops are advancing." "Too late," Sheridan snarled viciously. "Griffin commands now. Get out." Warren had graduated second at West Point, saved Little Round Top at Gettysburg. Now disgrace. His career destroyed in one hesitant moment. He watched younger officers assume command of his beloved 5th Corps. Soldiers marched past without saluting their former commander. Warren stood alone, watching his world collapse. Victory tasted like poison. Pickett arrived, finding his army disintegrating before his eyes. Union forces controlled the crossroads. Earthworks overrun. Artillery captured. Thousands of prisoners marching northward with raised hands. 4 years of war ending like this at a shad bake, miles away from where duty demanded. Guilt crushed him worse than enemy bullets. Caldwell hid in a freezing creek bed, watching blue uniforms search the darkening woods. Surrender meant prison Elmira or Point Lookout death camps, but continuing meant certain capture anyway. Lee's army was finished. Everyone knew it now. He stood slowly, hands trembling upward, walked toward his captors. His war ended here. By nightfall, Sheridan controlled Five Forks completely. 5,000 Confederate prisoners trudged northward under guard. Lee's right flank had ceased to exist. The Southside Railroad lay exposed, defenseless. Grant received the dispatch at headquarters, read it twice, smiled quietly. "Lee evacuates tonight or tomorrow," he told his staff calmly. Lee studied reports in his Petersburg headquarters. Five Forks fallen, right flank destroyed. Pickett's division scattered. Davis must be warned Richmond cannot be held. 4 years defending Virginia, ending like this. Evacuation orders went out at 10 o'clock. Government officials, army supplies, everything must move tonight. The Capitol would burn before dawn. Picture Jefferson Davis sitting in St. Paul's Church that Sunday morning, April 2nd. A courier enters during services, hands him Lee's telegram. Davis reads silently, his face turning ash gray. He rises abruptly, leaves without explanation. Whispers ripple through the stunned congregation. By afternoon, Richmond churns, with panicked crowds fleeing southward. Soldiers torched warehouses to prevent Union capture. Flames spread rapidly through Richmond's wooden structures. Mobs looted stores, fought over food, smashed windows for valuables. Officials burned documents, abandoned offices, fled toward Danville. Explosions rocked the city as ammunition depots detonated. 4 years of sacrifice dissolving into chaos and fire. I shuffled westward with Lee's retreating army through the darkness. Nobody spoke. We all understood what Five Forks meant. The war was finished. Some men slipped away into the night, heading home to their families. Others stayed, following Lee, because they couldn't imagine abandoning him now. Loyalty without hope cuts deepest. Grant launched his final Petersburg assault at dawn, April 3rd. Confederate defenders fought stubbornly, but lines were stretched impossibly thin now. By 8 o'clock, Union troops poured into the city streets. Citizens emerged from cellars waving white flags, surrendering. After 10 months of siege warfare, Petersburg finally belonged to the Union. Abraham Lincoln visited Petersburg that same afternoon. Walking through streets still smoldering from Confederate retreat, freed slaves surrounded him, weeping, reaching desperately to touch his coat. "Father Abraham," they shouted. Lincoln looked, uncomfortable with such worship. He'd freed them legally. Now they were truly free. History's crushing weight pressed his shoulders. "You're riding with Sheridan now, pursuing Lee's retreating ghost army like an avenging angel. Your cavalry harasses supply trains, captures stragglers, cuts escape routes. Sleep is for the weak and defeated. Grant gave you one mission: prevent Lee from reaching North Carolina and joining Johnston. You intend destroying Lee's army completely first. We marched without food. Supply wagons had been captured or destroyed at Five Forks. Men chewed bark, ate grass, collapsed from starvation. Officers shared their last hardtack with enlisted boys. Horses dropped dead in harness. Artillery was abandoned when teams couldn't pull anymore. The Army of Northern Virginia was becoming a ghost. Pickett would carry Five Forks' shame until death. Lee relieved him permanently. "I cannot trust you anymore," Lee said quietly. Each word, a knife thrust. Pickett had led Gettysburg's famous doomed charge. Now he'd lost the battle that doomed the Confederacy while eating fish. History remembers both failures equally. Some mistakes are unforgivable. Union soldiers discovered abandoned Confederate camps littered with personal treasures, letters from sweethearts, family photographs, wedding rings. One sergeant found a diary entry. "We fight for honor now, not victory. Honor is all we possess anymore. He pocketed the diary, wondering if its author still lived somewhere ahead on that blood-soaked road. Lee rallied his army at Amelia Courthouse, expecting supplies. The trains arrived completely empty. Someone had mistakenly sent them to Richmond instead. Disaster. Compounding disaster. 40,000 starving men found nothing. Lee stared at empty boxcars, his legendary composure finally cracking. "This is my fault," he whispered. "All mine." Sheridan cut Lee's route at Jetersville, blocking the path toward North Carolina salvation. Lee detoured westward again, more miles, more exhaustion, more death. Union cavalry shadowed every Confederate movement. Rear guard fought desperate delaying actions just to buy time. Soldiers threw away equipment to move faster. The race to Appomattox had begun. I sat in a Union prisoner camp, 20 pounds lighter but oddly relieved. My war was over. No more killing, no more running away in shame. Other prisoners looked haunted, defeated. Some wept openly for the lost cause. I felt strangely empty inside. What would I tell people back home about my surrender? Lincoln entered conquered Richmond on April 4th. Freed slaves mobbed his carriage, singing hymns of deliverance. He visited the Confederate White House, actually sitting in Davis's abandoned chair. Strange to occupy your enemy's seat of power. Victory felt bittersweet after so much death. Lincoln looked older than his 56 years. Lee's officers urged dispersing the Army waged guerrilla warfare from mountain strongholds. Lee refused immediately and firmly. "That would bring destruction to Virginia for years. I will not do it." Surrender was preferable to endless partisan bloodshed. Some generals argued passionately. Lee silenced them with one iron look. Dignity even in defeat. Grant pursued methodically, tightening the noose incrementally each day. His telegrams to Sherman revealed satisfaction without gloating. "The end approaches," he wrote. "Lee cannot escape now." Grant had chased Lee for nearly a year, from the Wilderness to Petersburg to Five Forks to wherever this race finished. Soon, very soon, it would end. Confederate soldiers began surrendering individually, then in groups, finally by entire companies. They'd march until physically unable to continue, then sit down and wait for Union cavalry. No shame remained, just exhaustion. Officers looked away. Everyone understood the truth. The cause was lost. Five Forks had proven that conclusively. Men thought only of survival now. Sheridan fought Sailor's Creek on April 6th. Lee lost 8,000 more men captured or killed in one afternoon. A quarter of his remaining army simply vanished. Lee watched from a hilltop as his divisions dissolved. "My God, has the army been dissolved?" he asked aloud, voice breaking. An officer replied quietly, "Not yet, General. Very soon." Lee's remaining 17,000 exhausted men reached Appomattox Station on April 8th. One final desperate march toward Lynchburg. But Sheridan had gotten there first, blocking the road. Union cavalry everywhere. Infantry arrived throughout the night. Lee was surrounded. His officers gathered for council of war. Some wanted attacking at dawn. Lee studied endless enemy campfires. Our artillery opened fire at dawn. April 9th, one last desperate attempt breaking through Union lines. For an hour, we actually drove back Sheridan's cavalry. Success seemed possible. Then, Union infantry appeared, two entire fresh corps. 50,000 troops. Officers rode back with grim faces. The road was blocked. Fighting was finished completely. "There was nothing left but to see General Grant," Lee finally said. His staff stood frozen in disbelief. Surrender? Robert E. Lee surrendering? It seemed apocalyptic, impossible. But Five Forks had made this moment inevitable. Every battle since had merely delayed it. Lee wrote requesting terms. A courier galloped toward Union lines with white flag fluttering. "You're Grant, suffering a terrible migraine when Lee's message arrives. The pain vanishes instantly. You dictate generous terms. Officers keep sidearms. Soldiers go home. No imprisonment." Lincoln ordered leniency. "Let them have their horses for spring plowing," you add. Your staff looks surprised. You explain simply, "The war is over now. Let's help them rebuild." They met in Wilmer McLean's parlor at Appomattox Courthouse. Lee arrived first, wearing his finest dress uniform, final gesture of defiant dignity. Grant came wearing muddy boots, private's blouse, no sword. Two men who'd never met, ending America's bloodiest war. Lee was tall, gray, dignified. Grant was short, rumpled, quiet. History held its breath. Lee read Grant's terms silently. Officers could keep sidearms and horses. Soldiers wouldn't be imprisoned. He'd expected harsher punishment for treason. Grant watched Lee's weathered face, seeing relief. "These terms are generous," Lee acknowledged quietly. Grant nodded. "We're all Americans again soon." Lee signed. His hand trembled. 4 years ended with one signature. I stacked my rifle on April 12th. Union troops formed respectful lines as our regiments passed. Joshua Chamberlain ordered his men to salute each Confederate unit. We straightened shoulders, marched proudly despite defeat. Some comrades wept openly. We'd fought magnificently for a terrible cause. That cause was dead now, but personal honor might still survive. Lee addressed his army one final time. General Order Number 9 praised our courage, blamed himself for defeat. "You will take with you my admiration for your constancy and devotion." Soldiers broke down completely. Some kissed travelers' flanks. Lee wept too. They'd followed him through hell itself. He'd led them to this. Both truths existed simultaneously. News of surrender spread across the dying Confederacy like wildfire consuming dry timber. Johnston would surrender in North Carolina 3 weeks later. Taylor in Alabama, Kirby Smith in distant Texas. The dominoes fell one by one, inevitable as gravity. Richmond's ruins still smoldered, but the killing had stopped. After 4 years of slaughter, silence descended across battlefields. Pickett lived 30 years after Five Forks, never escaping that battle's suffocating shadow. He wrote defensive letters, blamed subordinates, sought vindication that never came. Lee never spoke to him again. History judged him harshly, the general who lost the Confederacy while eating fish. Some moments define entire lives. Pickett's came on April 1st, 1865. Warren spent 15 bitter years fighting for vindication. He demanded a court of inquiry into his dismissal. The court finally ruled in 1883 that Sheridan had acted unjustly. Warren was right all along, but he died 3 months before the ruling was published. Vindication came too late to heal the wound. Justice for a dead man. Caldwell returned home to Dinwiddie County, 20 pounds lighter, haunted by nightmares that never stopped. He married, raised children, farmed his father's land, never spoke about Five Forks to anyone. His grandchildren asked about the war. He'd shake his head silently. Some memories are too heavy for sharing. He carried Five Forks' secrets to his grave. Five Forks battlefield became farmland again. Wheat grew where men had died screaming. Children played where artillery had thundered. Local farmers plowed up cannonballs, buttons, bullets, history literally buried beneath Virginia soil. The crossroads that ended the Confederacy returned to obscurity. Only weathered markers and fading memories remained of that terrible afternoon. Five Forks changed more than military maps. It shattered the illusion that Confederate independence remained possible. Lee's army could have retreated to mountains, fought guerrilla war for years. Instead, Five Forks broke their spirit completely. One cavalry strike accomplished what 200 previous battles. Couldn't it ended the South's will to continue fighting? Historians debate endlessly what would have happened if Pickett had stayed at his post. Could he have held Five Forks against overwhelming numbers? Probably not. Sheridan's forces were too massive. But perhaps he could have delayed the breakthrough long enough for Lee to escape Petersburg intact. Different casualties, different heroes, different ending. History pivots on such choices. Consider the greatest irony. Wilmer McLean had moved to Appomattox specifically to escape the war. His farm near Manassas had hosted First Bull Run's opening battle. "The war began in my front yard," he'd complained, relocating to peaceful countryside. 4 years later, Lee surrendered in McLean's new parlor. Some people cannot escape history's grasp. Five Forks reminds us that wars end not with apocalyptic final battles, but with exhaustion, hunger, and brutal mathematics. Lee understood the numbers after Five Forks. No heroic last stand could change arithmetic. The South had lost too many men, supplies, railroads. Continuing meant watching his soldiers starve slowly. surrender became the merciful choice available. Stand today at Five Forks Crossroads. Close your eyes. Imagine 10,000 desperate men fighting for a dying cause. Hear cannon thunder, rifles crack, men scream in agony. Then silence. History turned here in ways participants couldn't comprehend. Petersburg fell. Richmond burned. Lee surrendered. Lincoln died. Reconstruction began. America transformed because of one muddy crossroads. The men who fought Five Forks would have been shocked. Learning their names would be forgotten while the battle became legendary. Private Caldwell, Thomas Munford, even Ranald Mackenzie history swallowed them completely. Only leaders survived in memory. Lee, Grant, Sheridan, Pickett. Perhaps that's fitting. The soldiers just wanted going home. They weren't fighting for immortality. What would you do at Five Forks? Stand with Munford, watching your commander abandon his post? Follow Pickett to his shad bake, unknowing? Charge with Caldwell, knowing you'd probably die? Surrender immediately, or fight until physical collapse? Easy to judge from comfortable distance. Impossible to know until you're there. Five Forks asks uncomfortable questions about duty and courage. April 1st became April 9th. Five Forks became Appomattox. Pickett's disaster enabled Lee's dignified surrender. Perhaps that's how history works. Shameful defeats prepare ground for honorable endings. If Five Forks had been won, the war continues, more blood spills. Reconciliation becomes harder. Maybe Pickett's failure was strange mercy. Sometimes, losing quickly hurts less than winning slowly. Grant's generosity at Appomattox started with Five Forks' completeness. He destroyed Lee's army so thoroughly that mercy became possible. Winners can afford magnanimity. If the war had dragged on, if Confederate guerrillas had fought from mountains, Grant might have implemented harsher terms. Five Forks' decisive victory paradoxically made gentle peace possible afterward. Lincoln died 6 days after Lee surrendered. He'd seen Five Forks' fruits: Petersburg captured, Richmond fallen, Lee surrendered, Union preserved, slavery abolished forever. But he never witnessed Reconstruction's bitterness, never saw how hard peace would prove. Perhaps that was mercy too. Five Forks ended the war he'd agonized over. What came after was another generation's burden. Phil Sheridan became commanding general of the United States Army, dying in 1888. His aggressive tactics won the war but destroyed Gouverneur Warren's career unjustly. Was Five Forks' victory worth that injustice? Sheridan never apologized, never doubted his decision. Perhaps commanders can't afford such doubts. War requires decisive action, even when occasionally unjust. Five Forks teaches that timing matters more than courage. Pickett's men were brave veterans who'd fought magnificently for years. But on April 1st, 1865, they were outnumbered, outflanked, and abandoned by their commander at the worst possible moment. Courage without support means nothing. Heroism without logistics accomplishes nothing. Wars are won by supply lines, not bravery alone. Visit Five Forks today. It's mostly empty fields now. A few weathered monuments, some interpretive signs. Hardly any tourists compared to Gettysburg's grandeur or Antietam's solemnity. Just quiet Virginia countryside where history turned decisively. Perhaps that's appropriate. The battle that ended America's bloodiest war should rest peacefully. The dead earned that silence and our grateful remembrance. The crossroads still exists. Five roads still meet there. Modern cars pass through constantly on their way to somewhere else. Drivers don't notice historical markers. They're late for work, thinking about bills, planning dinner. Life continues at Five Forks. That's the point, really. Men died, so normal life could resume afterward. They fought so their children wouldn't have to fight. Here's what historians rarely discuss. Five Forks made Juneteenth possible. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in rebel states, but only Union occupation made freedom real. Five Forks started the dominoes falling: Petersburg, Richmond, Appomattox, surrender, occupation, enforcement of freedom. Texas slaves learned they were free on June 19, 1865. That chain started here. Robert E. Lee never publicly blamed Pickett for Five Forks, though he relieved him of command permanently. Lee took responsibility himself. "I alone am to blame," he said repeatedly. Perhaps that's what greatness looks like: accepting responsibility, even for subordinates' failures. Pickett blamed everyone else for 30 years. Lee blamed only himself. Character matters most in defeat. Stand at Five Forks Crossroads one last time. Listen carefully to the wind through Virginia pines. April 1st, 1865. Sheridan's cavalry thundered down this road while Pickett ate shad 3 miles away. Lee's empire crumbled in one afternoon. Richmond burned. Lincoln died. The modern America you inhabit was born here in mud and blood. Five Forks, the battle nobody remembers that changed everything.